Muscle memory. That's what this game made me truly perfect while playing it. This is somewhat a bad thing, but not in a truly awful way. There's a certain silver lining to this. Strangers of distant lands, friends of old, welcome. I'm Accursed Shadow, and today we'll be deep diving into Crimson Desert to see what this game truly is all about. Grab your popcorn, ladies and gents, get comfy, turn that volume up a little bit, and let's not waste any more time and dive straight into it. Although I haven't completed the game, I can truly say that I am at least 20 hours in the game, and what I can honestly say is the fact that it started to get really good after the first 10 hours. Update. I was 20 hours in the game, now I'm in well over 85 hours since this review is a lengthy one and took a lot of time to write and record. That being said, let's head in straight into the most important aspect of what I consider to be about any review: the gameplay. To elaborate the whole muscle memory thing mentioned in the intro of this video, that's the one thing this game forced me to develop while playing it. And I mean really develop it over time. Because here's the thing, when you first jump into Crimson Desert, something immediately feels off. The controls don't quite sit where you expect them to. Your inputs feel slightly delayed or just awkward. Combat, movement, even simple interactions, there's this constant friction between what you want to do and what the game actually does. And in those first few hours, it can be frustrating, like genuinely frustrating. You find yourself second guessing your own reactions. You press a button expecting one outcome, and the game gives you something slightly different. And that disconnect, it builds up. It makes the experience feel heavier than it should be. And this is exactly where I think a lot of players bounced off the game early. Because if a game doesn't feel right in your hands, it's very hard to justify sticking with it. But here's where that silver lining I mentioned earlier starts to come in. Because the more you play, the more the game starts forcing you to adapt. Not the other way around, you adapt to it. Your hands begin to memorize the quirks. Your timing gets tighter, your reactions become more intentional, and slowly, without even realizing it, you stop fighting the controls and start flowing with them. That's the moment where everything begins to shift. And oddly enough, it keeps your brain engaged the entire time. You're not just mindlessly pressing buttons, you're actively thinking, adjusting, learning. It demands your attention in a way that a lot of modern games don't. In a weird way, it almost feels like training. And when it finally clicks, it's satisfying. Not because the system is perfect, but because you overcame it. So yeah, on the surface, that muscle memory aspect can feel like a flaw, but underneath that, there's something kind of rewarding about it. Now, before we go any further, I do want to take a moment to address something from my previous video because it ties directly into this early experience. I feel it's important to apologize to developers at Pearl Abyss for my previous video entitled Crimson Desert: My Initial Thoughts. The reason for my apology is that I made an unwarranted comparison between Crimson Desert and Cyberpunk 2077 at its launch. I need to clarify that my comparison was not entirely specific. What I intended to convey was that Crimson Desert experienced a release with significant issues such as bugs and poor controls, but I did not claim it was the exact same disaster as Cyberpunk 2077. At its launch, Cyberpunk 2077 was so unplayable that CD Projekt Red had to remove it from major platforms like the PlayStation Store and Steam. It was the only game for which I requested a refund, but a year later I repurchased it, played it through, and was ultimately satisfied with my decision. In contrast, while Crimson Desert had a challenging launch, Pearl Abyss made a concerted effort to address the majority of these issues through subsequent patches, which I will discuss further shortly. Therefore, I did not state that Crimson Desert's launch was identical to Cyberpunk's. I merely meant that it faced significant problems that were similar, though not exactly the same as those encountered with Cyberpunk. I will include a link to the video right up here for those who are interested in viewing it. Now, with that out of the way, let's properly step into the gameplay, because this is where Crimson Desert really starts to reveal what it's all about. And trust me, if you were there at launch, you already know it was rough. If you were unfortunate enough to purchase this game at its launch, like I was, you likely experienced frustration beyond what you could have imagined. We will explore both the positive and negative aspects of the gameplay, beginning with the negatives. Many players, myself not included, had to wait until the game received necessary patches to play it effectively. Some may have chosen to refund the game, while others, like me, expressed their dissatisfaction with both the game and its developers. At the time of its release, the controls felt very awkward, and the user interface was extremely poor. There were numerous bugs, and even now there are still aspects of the game that require quality of life improvements. The game emphasizes open sandbox gameplay rather than focusing on story. Even the devs mentioned story? Yeah. Nope. Go and have fun with this open world. But on that note, they are absolutely killing it. They spent 7 whole freaking years for the development of this game. I cannot stress enough how far the good aspects of the game came to counterweight the bad ones. So much that all my gripes with the game are purely small to non-existent anymore. I do have a small gripe though, and let's not even call it a gripe. Let's call it a request more than anything. Transmogrifications. Bring in the transmogs in future patches, please. That's it. That's my only request. This game has it all. It's a game of everything about everything. Actually, saying that this game has it all is a massive understatement when it comes to the content in it. The best way I've heard that this game is described, well, it's actually in 2 ways. One is from the channel Legendary Drops, which the dude over there said it's like eating a $100 steak with a spoon. And the second is from another source that I cannot remember exactly where I've heard it, but it goes like this. The devs all gathered in their meeting hall and said, "Dragons. We have to have dragons in the game." No one said anything. "Medieval weapons. We gotta have medieval weapons." No one said anything. "Mounts. We gotta have mounts." No one said anything. "Bugs, flies, animals, birds, fish, insects. We have to have those." Room stayed silent. Another dev goes, "We gotta have helmets that shoots frickin' lasers out of their frickin' eyes."
Are those sharks with laser beams attached to their heads? Cool. You mean I actually have frickin' sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their frickin' heads? You're the best.
No one batted an eye about it. Jetpacks, automatons, big battles in the skies, and why not a bank? Devs said throw all that in there and then some. And one final small dev in the corner of the hall said, "And the story." They all went, "Nah man, fuck that." And still, there is so much more content in the game, so much as a camp where you expand it. You get to build your camp. Once it is built, you get to send your Greymane's companions on certain tasks, such as gathering supplies for the camp, clearing out the enemy camp, or farm for materials, of which all those things you can do it by yourself, by the way. You can become a thief if you choose to do so, and loot everything in the buildings across towns and settlements. The game does not hold your hand like other games do when you get to be stuck at a certain boss battle or puzzle. It lets you figure out the solutions all by yourself and put that beautiful brain of yours to good use. I'll admit that there were a few instances when I was quite stuck on certain puzzles and had to look it up myself because I'm no puzzle boy. What I do am, though, is an avid explorer boy. Once I found the solution to the puzzle itself, it was like, who in their fucking right mind thought that I was supposed to know that? But that's the beauty of the puzzles in Crimson Desert. You get to try all sorts of different shit with them up until the point you bash your head against the wall and finally cave in and search the solution on the internet. You have a big ass mech in the game that you can mount and shoot the living shit out of the enemies. There are animal companions such as dogs, cats, all in a variety of breeds that you can befriend so that you can drag them along with you on your adventures and they'll loot everything for you. Think of them as your own personal automated looting system. The fighting system in the game feels really satisfying. For a game of this caliber, in terms of the amount of content, to have such a satisfying combat system, and it is purely and genuinely out of this world. Bows and arrows, swords, punches, kicks, grappling hooks that pull in enemies from afar or pulls you towards them, guns, magic, you name it. There is something for everybody, and I do mean everybody, to enjoy. I mean, at one point, I even saw the Izuna drop from Ninja Gaiden. You probably must have not heard me. The fucking Izuna drop from fucking Ninja Gaiden. The gear system in Crimson Desert is both intricate and rewarding, offering players numerous ways to enhance their strength and customize their playstyle. Your primary method of improving equipment is through the blacksmiths located in towns. These skilled craftsmen can upgrade your weapons and armor, but doing so requires a range of materials such as iron ore, copper ore, diamonds, azurites, and many others. Each material contributes to different levels of enhancements, whether that be raw damage output, durability, or special effects that can turn the tide of a difficult battle. In addition to straightforward upgrades, the games allow you to merge duplicate pieces of gear to forge improved versions of that specific type. This system applies to both weapons and armor, rewarding players who commit to exploration and resource gathering with opportunities to exponentially strengthen their equipment. For those who enjoy min-maxing or experimenting with builds, this combination mechanic adds significant depth and encourages continual engagement with the game's loot cycle. Beyond conventional gear, the game introduces a unique system involving abyss gears, which are essentially weapon and armor cores, or at the very least, as I like to call them. These cores are special items that can either be embedded into your equipment to grant powerful bonuses or extracted when you wish to repurpose them for other gear. Much like the base equipment, cores can also be combined if you possess multiple of the same type, creating even more potent versions. With the right materials, you can even craft entirely new cores, offering a sense of progression and creativity in how you tailor your combat capabilities. Interestingly enough, core maintenance is handled separately from standard upgrading. Once you progress further into the story, you unlock access to witches, enigmatic figures who specializes in mending and enhancing these cores. This adds a layer of narrative depth and thematic flair to the crafting system, making the upgrade process feel like part of an evolving adventure rather than a mere menu interaction. One notable design choice in Crimson Desert is the absence of traditional potions. Instead, the game employs a food system to manage survival and resource recovery. Different dishes can replenish health, spirit, stamina, or combination of these vital stats. Understanding this system is crucial, particularly for boss encounters, as proper preparation can be the difference between victory and defeat. Cooking in the game occurs at designated spots on the map where you can learn new recipes and refine your culinary skills. For the more adventurous gamers out there, improvising with gathered ingredients allows for experimentation, potentially leading to the discovery of unique effects and buffs. The fast travel system in the game involves small, rounded platforms located on the ground, which serve as your points for quick travel across the map. However, there's a unique aspect to these platforms. You must first locate and discover them before you can use them for fast travel or repair them. The term repair here is somewhat misleading, and I encourage you to explore the game to understand its true meaning, as I won't spoil it for you guys. Interestingly, it seems that whether this was an intentional feature by Pearl Abyss or not, Standing on these platforms while initiating fast travel significantly increases the speed of the travel compared to not standing on them. There are numerous fast travel spots on the map, and I mean a lot. However, fast traveling does come with a drawback. You'll miss out on the breathtaking beauty of the Crimson Desert that offers such opportunities. Therefore, I strongly advise against using these fast travel platforms unless it's absolutely necessary or you're in a real hurry to reach your destination. That being said, we'll be diving into the leveling system next. The leveling system in this game is quite unique when it comes to abilities. You get abyss scores throughout the game, be it that you find them lying around, pickpocketing them from residents inside towns, completing puzzles, or straight up treasure hunting them. I do have to mention that for the ones you have lying around, they are called differently than your regular abyss scores. They are called key item/abyss item. They are unique in their own way purely because these provide challenges for you to complete. Once you complete said challenge, such as killing 3 enemies with a heavy attack all at once as an example, then you obtain the abyss core from it, which you can use for upgrading your abilities. There's also one more way, to my knowledge at least, that you can obtain abyss cores, and that's through fighting and eliminating a certain amount of enemies. The orange bar at the left of your minimap, that's exactly what that's for. The game doesn't tell you this, but think of it as your experience bar. Once it gets filled up, you get another experience point, or in our case, an abyss core. Worthwhile mentioning is the fact that after upgrading your gear a certain amount of times, you're gonna need those cores as a crafting material to further progress your upgrading refinements. Also, I forgot to mention the currency of the game. There's copper and silver. I absolutely have no clue if there's gold currency in the game, but I know for a fact that there are gold bars in the game, and one gold bar is worth like a shit ton of silver if you know where to go and sell them. Now 100 copper equals 1 silver. Think of them as pennies and dollars to provide a more lifelike perspective on the whole matter. Obviously, pennies being the copper and dollars being the silver in this example. Copper and silver can be obtained from looting enemies or items in houses, such as small boxes and chests. Now, the currency may come in different forms when looting them, either in raw form, which straight up adds to your total currency, or in pouches. With these so-called pouches, you can either open them and get the whatever amount of currency that's inside, or you can give them as gifts to NPC vendors so that you may build up their trust. Build enough trust with the vendor in question, and they open up new options for purchasing from their inventory. If you find yourself to be greedy, you can always just greet them a couple of times per visit, or was it per in-game day? I can't truly remember, as I didn't test this yet, and basically this will add a small amount of trust to them when greeted, but the time to reach full trust with them this way will take a shit ton of more time. The boss battles in this game. Yeah, they've got a reputation. Unfair is the word you hear throughout around a lot. And honestly, I get it. I felt that too. There were moments where it didn't even feel like I was learning. It just felt like I was getting shut down. Fast, repeatedly. No clear answers, no obvious openings, just punishment. But recently, after getting absolutely walled by one of the Sanctum bosses in Crimson Desert, something clicked for me. It wasn't the boss that was unfair, it was me walking in unprepared. And I don't mean that lightly, I mean really unprepared, because this game doesn't treat boss fights like isolated encounters. It treats them like exams. Everything you've been doing up to that point, that's the study phase. So you have to start asking yourself real questions before you even step into that arena. Are you actually leveled for this, or just hoping you are? Have you properly slotted your abyss cores, or are you just running whatever you picked up along the way? Is your gear upgraded with intention, or are you coasting on good enough? And most importantly, are you stocked up on food, buffs, sustain, or are you walking in empty expecting skill alone to carry you? Because here's the truth that the game doesn't spell out for you. Preparation is part of the fight. Once I started treating it that way, everything shifted. That same boss that felt impossible, suddenly I was lasting longer, seeing more phases, recognizing patterns. Not because the boss changed, but because I did. And then there's the other layer, the one that really changes how you approach these fights. These bosses aren't just about mechanics, they're about figuring them out, like genuinely. A lot of them, honestly, probably most of them, are built around what are basically hidden puzzle mechanics. Not literal puzzles, but systems and behaviors that you're expected to read, interpret, and exploit. And if you ignore that, yeah, prepare to get absolutely wrecked, because you'll be trying to brute force something that was never designed to be brute forced to begin with. You'll be dodging perfectly, landing hits, doing everything right, and still getting nowhere, because you haven't solved the fight yet. But the moment you do start to understand what the boss is asking of you, everything opens up. Attacks that felt random start to look deliberate. Windows that didn't exist suddenly become obvious. Damage that felt insignificant suddenly spikes because you're hitting at the right time, not just any time. And that's when it hits you. These fights aren't unfair, they're just unapologetically demanding. They demand preparation, they demand attention, they demand patience. And yeah, that's not going to land well for everyone, especially if you're coming in expecting a more traditional reaction based combat loop. But if you lean into it, if you slow down, prep properly, and actually engage with what the game is trying to teach you, beating a boss doesn't just feel progress, it feels earned. And that completely changes how you see the whole experience. The mechanics of this game, as the whole game itself, does absolutely a terrible job in holding your hand, yet this comes out as a good thing, at least for me, because frankly, I've kinda had it with the whole yellow paint in recent games. I want to figure stuff out on my own, and this game has proven countless times that it can provide that, which makes the experience so much more satisfying when figuring shit out on my own. More often than not, I found myself scratching my head to its game mechanics, such as the main gray main camp in the game, Cliff's house, or how in Odin's name are the dice working in this game. I have collected a bunch of dice up until the beginning of chapter 7 in the game, yet each and every time I visit one of the die NPCs, I cannot use my collected dice to paint my weapons nor my armor for that matter. And can anyone please explain to me just how the fuck is the cuckoo pot supposed to be working? I mean, I have it, and the only use for it that I currently found is storing big items such as puzzle structures or other stuff that you cannot hold in your inventory. Maybe I am the stupid one here and I am overstressing this mechanic out, but I know for a fact that there's some sort of upgrading system to it. Now, what in the hell are you supposed to be upgrading with it? Odin knows, since I have yet to discover it or haven't reached that point in the game just yet. Overall, the mechanics are a bit frustrating, but the experience alongside with figuring them out pays off in the end. This I know since it has proven to be true, for me at least, time and time again with this gorgeous game that is Crimson Desert. There isn't a single thing that is not solvable if you truly put to work that beautiful brain of yours. Alright, let's dive into this whole mess about the game borrowing mechanics from other successful titles. First off, there's Red Dead Redemption 2. Yeah, this game has those button presses to make your character run faster and mini games like archery ranges and fistfights. Critics are all over this, pointing fingers and saying it's just a rip-off. But come on, who doesn't love a good minigame? Then there's The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, with its arm/puzzle mechanics. And don't even get me started on the stamina system from Immortals Phoenix Rising, or the discoverability in Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Odyssey. Should I keep listing them? Probably not, but you get the point. Now, I haven't played most of these AAA games except for Phoenix Rising, which I consider a solid AA game, and Assassin's Creed Valhalla as well. Yeah, I know, I am missing out on some epic adventures, but before you start lecturing me, let's just agree that I am, okay? Done deal? Alright, now shut up and let me continue this epic review. Right, do all these games have borrowed mechanics? Sure they do. Does it bruise the egos of other developers? Maybe. I mean, Nintendo probably isn't going to let this slide without a lawsuit. But here's the real question. Does it make the game more fun for us players? Absolutely. And that's where this game truly excels. Having a blast. Do we, the players, really care if they're borrowed mechanics from other games? Are they even borrowed? Think about it. If a game has a protagonist and another game that's gonna release in the future also has a protagonist, does that make it a straight up copycat? Of course not. Sure, there are resemblances and similarities, but anything that works, Pearl Abyss figured that out, and that's where they stand out from the competition. I have no idea if they'll get sued into oblivion for this, but one thing's for sure. All those borrowed mechanics work like a charm when they're all packed into the same game. And that's what makes it a damn good time. Gameplay score 9.5 out of 10. No contest. Sure, it still has a lack of polish here and there, but like I mentioned previously, this is only outweighed by the sheer amount of actual fun you get to have within this massive open world sandbox. Now, moving on to the next aspect of this game review, difficulty. Although, initially, when the game launched, there were absolutely no ways to tone down or to increase the difficulty in the game, that is not the case anymore since a recent patch has rectified this. You can now go on easy, normal, or hard mode. This sparked loads of controversy online, such as that the game has become somewhat the same as all modern games are, and it emphasizes that at one point Crimson Desert will eventually fall into the same bracket of holding your hand / yellow paint games with this update. But I say that it's not the case. Brothers, fellow Vikings, it's simple and furthermore really easy for that matter. Just don't touch the difficulty settings. Or even more so, do touch it and crank it up to hard mode if your fighting spirit is craving for a real challenge. I myself have not touched the difficulty settings in this game and will slowly but surely finish the game like it was truly intended and as the Allfather wanted, on normal difficulty. As discussed previously in the gameplay section, this game offers no real challenge if you just go prepared for every upcoming battle with loads of food stocked up in your pockets. I truly think that the starting difficulty, which is normal difficulty by the way, isn't really hard nor easy for that matter. It offers fair challenge, and when I say fair, I really believe it to be absolutely fair. Sure, the boss battles I found to be somewhat a tad bit harder than all your other normal difficulty boss battles in other games, but that is the beauty of it all because some bosses in this game are puzzles in themselves, and it's up to you, the player, to figure out how you can take them out more easily. Some of them you smash them with a pillar or tree, some of them you just climb on their backs and backstab the living out of them. Literally speaking. I found on a particular boss, of which I'm not gonna spoil which one, that all you had to do to beat him is snatch the core from them with your arm claw thingy. If you're struggling with the difficulty in this game, just put that beautiful brain of yours to work, and once you'll figure out the game mechanics, you'll be so much more satisfied that you've passed that point in the game or beaten that boss the way it was truly intended to be beaten than if you would turn down a notch the difficulty settings in the menu. Or you can do that as well. Each to their own, I guess. Anyways, I was gonna rank the difficulty in this game a solid 9. But now that I think about it, I can take it up 1 to a solid 10 out of 10 just because the puzzling system in the boss battles. I think that shit is absolutely awesome. Next aspect of this long and lengthy review, graphics and performance. I initially began playing the game on a standard PS5 console. For quite some time, I had been planning to upgrade to the PS5 Pro with the intention of enhancing the quality of content I create for all of you brave warriors out there. However, this particular game played a pivotal role in accelerating my decision to finally make the purchase. You might be wondering how this happened. Well, when I first started playing out on a regular PS5 at its launch, the game experience was severely compromised. The performance issues were so significant that I found it nearly impossible to enjoy the game as intended. This realization prompted me to think that's it, it's time to get myself the long overdue PS5 Pro. The desire to provide a smoother and more immersive gaming experience for both myself and my audience ultimately led to this decision. You know, when the game first launched on the regular PS5, the best way to enjoy it was by finding a balance between graphics and performance. I could have just switched to the performance mode, which would have given me a solid 60 frames per second. But unfortunately, for a game of this caliber at launch, that was a big no-no. The graphics would have been so compromised that it felt like I was playing a PS3 game, and that just wasn't going to cut it. Even though patches were released after launch, I've heard that the game on the regular PS5 have been significantly improved since then. It's really enjoyable now, and I guess I was a bit unlucky to have experienced those initial issues right from the start. But hey, I'm quite happy now for a couple of reasons. First of all, I got myself the PS5 Pro, which has been a game changer. Secondly, the game on the PS5 Pro is a real treat. It runs butter smooth in performance mode, and the visuals are stunning, especially during boss battles. Plus, the sightseeing is incredible when you're climbing on top of a hill or a mountain. It's like seeing the game world in a whole new light, and I couldn't be more thrilled and satisfied with the experience. The way this game made me feel in terms of visuals, think of a 5-year-old watching cartoons for the first time in its life, and I think that alone deserves a solid 10 out of 10. Aspect 4 of this review, sound and music. There's something truly enchanting about the music in this game. When you're wandering through the peaceful towns, the music gently fades into a soothing, almost serene melody that feels incredibly therapeutic. It's like the game is giving you a little musical massage, helping you relax and enjoy the moment with a happy ending. But when you find yourself in the heat of a boss battle, the music takes on a whole new life. The beats become more intense and energetic, perfectly matching the excitement and urgency of the fight. It's as if the music is cheering you on, pushing you to give it your all. The tones of the music also shift subtly, depending on the current atmosphere and the protagonist's state of mind, adding another layer of depth into the experience. I absolutely loved how the music enhanced my journey through the game, and for that I feel it deserves a perfect score of 10 out of 10. Now let's talk about the sound. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite reach the same level of excellence as the music. At times it feels a bit off, almost like it's struggling to keep up. I've noticed that some sounds more frequently than I'd like to admit. They can feel a bit laggy. What I mean by that is the timing isn't always spot on, especially during big battles in open fields. This can be a bit frustrating, but it hasn't significantly impacted my overall enjoyment of the game. Despite these issues, I still think the sound deserves a solid 8.8 out of 10. When you combine both the music and the sound, you get a score of 9.4 out of 10. It's not a perfect 10, but it's still a pretty impressive number. The music and sound together create an immersive experience that keeps you engaged and entertained throughout the game. Aspect number 5. Story. Oh shit. As Joker once said in The Dark Knight Rises. And here we go. Where do I begin? How can I write this story review without offending anyone? Fuck it. I'm just gonna say it as it is. If you're here for the story, prepare to be highly disappointed. The story kicks off with the Greymanes at war with the Black Bears, two factions hating the living shit out of themselves. I honestly can't even start explaining how the story begins without giving away spoilers, mainly because it doesn't make much sense at first. At the start of the game, everything feels like a jumble of random events. Seriously, it's like a bunch of unrelated stuff thrown together. For example, you have to rescue a woman who's tied up in a cellar, and then you need to give a beggar a coin just to move the story forward. I mean, what's the deal with that? My first question is, what? And my second question is, why? You get what I'm saying, right? But hold your horses, sports fans, because things get way better around chapter 4. From that point on, the story becomes much clearer and the action cutscenes are absolutely amazing. The game really pulls you in with its story and it delivers a much more engaging narrative starting from chapter 4 than what you've experienced at the beginning. And I do get it, okay? The story here is not the main highlight of the game. Even the devs said so themselves. As far as I know, to the best of my knowledge, the story was compiled in the final stages of the development of the game. Now, with all this being said, I do still believe that the story of the game is absolutely the pure downfall when it comes to the overall rating of the game. Therefore, story-wise, a 6.8 out of 10. If this was me rating the story at the beginning of the game and not having even at least those 10 hours in the game, I would have rated a 3. So this is me being nice here. Chapter number 6, Attention to Details. Yet another game with a banger in the attention to the details. Brother, the devs absolutely cooked in this game with the attention to the details. There's still, after 1 month of the game's release, shit that players are discovering every day in terms of details. Ever tried using nature's snare in a really leafy area? How about where there's a lot of smoke around you? No? Then you're missing out. The attention to the details in this game, I would say it is right up on the pedestal with Resident Evil 9 Requiem. You can wander in a town while in first person, cause yeah, this game has first person, third person, second person, millionth person, it fucking has it all. Yeah, so you can wander in a town and check out the attention to people's clothing. The fine silver threads on the people's clothes are truly out of this world, or the fact that beggars will latch onto your feet begging for money, or check what the NPCs are doing. At one point, I've seen the NPCs trolling other NPCs. Do I even want to start saying that once a town even erected in real time a statue? How about the fact that when you send your Greymanes on missions, let's say to help gather eggs, if you actually go to that location, you'll see your boys getting their hands dirty in the chickens' coops. There are circuses, I kid you not, fucking circuses, with all the entertainment that comes along with it. Hell, at this point, I think it kinda surpassed Resident Evil 9 in the details section. Oh, this just sprung to mind. Did y'all knew that there's the freaking Milky Way galaxy out there with all the stars, patterns, and whatnot? Don't know what the devs struggled to implement that, but hey, it's there. I mean, someone, a gamer, had a infinite stamina exploit and decided to see how high he could go. And if memory serves, I think he spent like a whole hour just stabbing through the air, because that's how he kept climbing, whilst having infinite food for stamina to the point where he exited the Earth's atmosphere and he literally was in outer space. When he finally decided to stop climbing, obviously he fell down to Earth's atmosphere again, but here's the cool part. While he was entering back the atmosphere, his body became lit from the friction of the air. Basically, ever so often what you see in sci-fi movies. Holy shit, bro. Pearl Abyss's Black Space Engine. Basically, the engine which the game itself was made is something that other developers should learn from, at least if not pay Pearl Abyss to grab some slices of that big pie themselves. Speaking of the Black Space Engine, this is something that we're witnessing firsthand in the games industry. What a time to be alive, eh? I'm dead sure that this engine will, if it hasn't already, make history for years to come, cause this, in my opinion at least, is truly something depicted out of a sci-fi movie, meaning that it's definitely ahead of its time. And with that last statement in mind, I give this game's attention to details the distinct honor of a 10 out of 10 rating. I mean, there wasn't any other way that this rating could have turned out, don't you agree? Aspect number 7 of this lengthy review: exploration. Did you ever had that sense of adventure back in the days when you were a 10-year-old? Ever had that feeling within your gut, beaming with excitement when the weekend was right around the corner and you would totally get pumped up for that sleepover at your friend's house rocking the games all night? Because this is what this game has done to me recently, time and time again, when I went exploring. Brothers, the sheer amount of shit there is in this game to find is purely out of this world. No wonder that only after 1 month of its release date, most of the players are still stuck within the starting area of the game, let alone finish the game, and just to be clear, I do not blame them. I myself am close to finishing chapter 9 as of writing this review. It is just so much to do that the main quests of the game do not matter anymore, to a certain degree at least. Think of the game's exploration as the main quest and the story being the secondary quests, because in its essence that's what this is. The map? Unreal. The map isn't a map of regions, but a map of continents. And not just void and empty continents, but beaming with life and high population density. Honestly, this is surreal. 99% of the time I played this game and established from the very beginning, even before turning on my console, that I would go and do some progression on the main story. That went down the drain pretty fast. I am sick. I need help, as I couldn't help myself not to go wander just for a little bit. Then that little bit turned into a massive bit, and before I knew it, already around 4 hours passed by without me even realizing. I swear, this game is like a time machine that propels you into the future. That's how good the exploration is. Never has a game recently made me feel like a child this much, or ever for that matter, if I really pause and think really hard about it for a minute. So, Chapter 9 start? Check. Loads of weapons and armor acquired? Check. Over 100 Abyss artifacts used towards abilities at least? Check. In between 30 to 40% map uncovered thus far? Check. Game progression overall? You might wanna sit down for this. 6%. Fuck me sideways on a Tuesday and call me grandma. 6 freaking percent. Can you imagine? That's why the exploration is so goddamn good in this game. It's colossal at this point. Sit down, grandchildren. Let me tell you a story about when your dear old grandpa used to play Crimson Desert. Matter of fact, let's fire up the game as I'm still under 50% its completion. But all jokes aside, this game's exploration section deserves well over a 10 out of 10 rating, and thus I will go beyond the 10. I will give it a 11 out of 10 for the sole reason that I've explained in the beginning of this section, which made me feel a kid again and again and again. And no other game had this impact on me in a really long time, or at all for that matter. Section number 8. The devs. This is the final section that I really felt the need to include the devs in this section. Customer support, fan service, development team, call it what you will. All I know is that Pearl Abyss have been working relentlessly to patch this game like a million times within a single month. Bro, each week and every week I was met with a new patch for this game, and not just small bug fixes like in other games. I found loads of quality life improvements in each and every patch. I mean improvements like added pets, control interface added, UI improvements, graphics and performance issues addressed and fixed. And the list stretches on for miles. I swear, where did they find the time to do this time and time again for each and every goddamn week? Or is this how it is supposed to feel? Maybe this has been the norm all the time, and basically all the other devs of other games have been lazy all the time. Within a single month, this game sold over 5 million copies. That's truly an impressive achievement, and the numbers keep on climbing. Wouldn't be surprised if it hit like at least 15 million copies by the time GTA 6 comes out this year, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Also, fun fact, I am truly grateful that the money I spend on this game has gone to a janitor on Pearl Abyss headquarters. And what I mean by that is the fact that the company paid each and every employee, regardless of their rank in the company itself, a whopping bonus of 3.5k dollars. Most of the gaming companies release their employees after the development of their game is done. Not Pearl Abyss though. These guys stayed committed to their employees, and I'm really excited to see what this company will do in the future. This has truly put into perspective the saying, take care of your employees, and your employees will most definitely take care of you. My hat off to you, Pearl Abyss, truly worthy of respect. And how can I rate this company lower than a 10 out of 10?
That's enough. Our fight isn't over.
It's dead! Everyone just shut the fuck down!
Final thoughts on this game are the fact that it's a masterpiece. There's simply no other way of putting it. Once in every decade or so comes along a company with a passion to their craft to show their competitors how it is truly done. This, in my own opinion, from my part at least, hasn't been just a review. It's been an apology and a love letter altogether to Pearl Abyss. The full rating of this game is a 9.5 out of 10. Not a perfect score, but for me, it's a perfect game in itself. But let's not forget the fact that the game devs will only keep on cooking those patches, and therefore the final overall score of the game, that is a 9.5 out of 10, will just keep on climbing. Truly worthy of Game of the Year. I'm gonna leave you guys with what my own flesh and blood, my very own brother, had to say at the end of his review for this game, and I quote, "One more thing. Thank you, Pearl Abyss. Thank you, Kim De-il. You've created something incredible. My mind is still trying to understand if this game is from this earth or was created by aliens or something." End quote. And as always, gratitude is in order for watching. Always remember to uphold the honor of the samurai, the courage of the Spartans, and the relentlessness of the Vikings. And I'll see you, my brave warriors, in the next one. But up until then, as always, Skull.